I'm Clarissa Montes
and Vincent Calatrava, and this is Jam TV News.
First headline, an international consultancy firm says the Philippines is the best performing economy in Southeast Asia.
That's why it has no longer to convince investors to put their money in the country. Now investors tell them, bring us there, Jovena Duringo.
Philippines is the fastest economy in Southeast Asia right now. This bold announcement comes from Oxford Business Group as launches latest investment outlook for the country. Oxford Managing Editor Paul U. Consina says investors are no longer asking why, but where should they invest in the Philippines. In less than 10 years, foreign rate investment had tripled. The main prosperous investor, a young English-speaking workforce, strong private consumption, and stable government committed to fight the corruption. Business leaders are urging the government to relax foreign ownership restriction so more trade investment can come in. It is also committed in infrastructure investment as conjunction. Lastly, businessmen are calling government to work for peace in Mindanao. Major obstacles spreading out development to some of the poorest area of the Philippines. President Rodrigo Duterte, the first head in Mindanao, might has just a leader to end this conflict. The reforms proposed by Oxford Paul claim to economic agenda just outlined by Duterte's team. It's still the early days, but business leaders are optimistic. Duterte presented himself as a man of action and sure enough to move fast economic team and present his plan. Despite the reform momentum businessmen call precautions, they say many of the policies to Aquino administration brought the Philippines to swear to end it now. We should this craft simply for the sake of change. This is Jovena Duringo, your reporter.
Thank you, Ms. Duringo. And now, for the second news, President Rodrigo Duterte signs the FOI bill.
Let's hear the whole report from Ira Imperial. Ira?
And so on and so forth. Signed, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Thank you.
He could have announced during his highly anticipated first State of the Nation address that President Rodi Duterte prefers to let the public know even sooner that the Executive Order on Freedom of Information is finally a reality. Less than a day after the President signed the Executive Order, Presidential Communications Secretary Martin Andanar makes announcement that at 7 p.m., July 23, 2016, in Davao City, on the 25th day of office as President of the Philippines, President Rodi Duterte signs the cornerstone, or the Executive Order called the Freedom of Information. The Executive Order states that every Filipino shall have access to information, records, and documents related to official government transactions, including research data. It covers all government agencies under the executive branch, including national and local offices. Andanar explains that any Filipino can request for the information by writing a letter to the authorized person assigned at the concerned agency. Andanar pointed out that with freedom of information, the release of the information should not take more than 15 days. But if there are legal questions on the information requested, it shall be forwarded to the Office of the Solicitor General or the Department of Justice for interpretation. Andanar said those who refuse to disclose information will be penalized.
Thank you, Ira Imperial, for your report. And now, we'll go to the breaking news. possible decision by the Supreme Court on the case of our former President, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo.
Let's get the latest from Dayan Tamayo, our correspondent, following debate in the Supreme Court. Dayan, do you have any information for us?
That's right, Clarissa. A source from the Supreme Court tells us that the Supreme Court grants former President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo demurrer to evidence willing to dismiss her plunder case involving her PCSO in those funds case. Now, the voting was 11-4, as told to us by our source from the Supreme Court. Those who voted in favor of Arroyo are Associated Justice Secretary Espetero Velasco, Teresita de Castro, Arturo Brion, Diosdado Peralta, Lucas Vestamin, Mariano del Castillo, Jose Perez Mendoza, Elvenido Reyes, Estela Perlas Bernabe, and Justice Secretary Francis Sardilesa. Those are the 11 who voted in favor of Arroyo. 8 of them are Arroyo appointees. Now, those who dissented are Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, Chief Associate Justice Antonio De Carpio, Marvic Leonen, and Alfred Caguiwa. Now, we have to get more details about this, Clarissa. We understand that there is a press briefing at 2 o'clock at the Supreme Court by the Public Information Office, Attorneys Teodorte.
Dayan, that's right. We are expecting that briefing at about 2 in the afternoon. That is the briefing of the spokesperson of the Supreme Court, Teodorte. We have already received that information that will happen at 2 p.m.
Again, Dayan, is that your source coming from the Supreme Court?
Yes, Clarissa. I would have to depend on the reliable source from the Supreme Court. The voting happened today. They voted in favor of former President GMA to grant her demurrer to evidence, basically dismissing her plunder case involving the 300 million peso of the PCSO Intelligence Fund, Clarissa.
So, well, definitely breaking news. Dayan, we already threw out the day, and even in the couple day or past weeks, there have been talks of possible decisions by the Supreme Court. And finally, this happened today, although the talk was more well active, that today may be the possibility that the decisions will be made again. Dayan is telling us that the source of her from the Supreme Court is well granting the case filed by the camp of Gloria Arroyo, a demurrer to evidence in layman's terms really.
Dayan, that means to dismiss the case that was filed against her, telling us that the vote was 11-4. Let me just name to you or identify those who voted against this the demurrer to evidence filed by the camp of Gloria Arroyo. They are the dissenting opinion coming from the Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, Associate Justice Marvic Leonen, and Associate Justice Caguiwa. They are, from what Dayan is telling us, they are the 4 who have dissenting opinion. The end of today's news.
We hope that we inform you for today's hottest issues. Once again, I am Elisa Manos.
And Vincent Caltrava, and this is JAM TV News.